So can you tell us a bit more about your involvement with the Tote that you mentioned?
Yes, I decided to take the work that I'd done for Corals, which got me the job, because I was working a lot on the place pot at that time. It was my favourite bit, still is in many ways. And I went to people there. It's when I first met Joe McNally, who's a great mate. And I know the person behind the other side of this camera should be ever grateful to him because it was he, along with one other person, who invented the Scoop 6. Name was Joe McNally. He went on to be the ghostwriter for Richard Pittman for all those thrillers. And Joe is a great mate to this day. Um, Joe set up a little company called Lazy Bear, and I'll go into that very soon. But for the time being, with the Tote, yeah, I used their office basically to get all the information I could, all the stats and facts for the place pot, which has been running for some time now. And I met up with Lord Wyatt of Weeford to give him his correct title, and it was Lord Wyatt that brought the bed over from South Africa, which not many people knew about. And he became a good friend, and he wrote the foreword for the first book that I wrote in the Placepot series, which I wrote three books for, and that was in 1994. And the whole situation with the Tote just went on for a very long time, to the point where I was invited to their 25th annual lunch to celebrate the Placepot, and stood up on the podium and gave them my two pennyworth about the Placepot. And of course, that's what I write predominantly about for the Sporting Life. So things were about to change for me quite a lot. But the previous year to that, I'd taken the football situation further, and I wrote my first book, which was the first book ever written on fixed odds football betting. At least I'm pretty sure it was. That's what the publisher told me. And that went very well, extremely well. And it was the first of 10 books I've had published. Great to see your book in W.H. Smith, When Your School have told you that you're a waste of space. And yeah, haven't made a lot of money on them. We can't all be J.K. Rowling's, but it's something I put my heart and soul into, and that's what the publisher knew. And I think the readers saw how much work went into it, and that's the type of work I do today. I don't like idle people. I haven't got a lot of time for them. There's a lot of idle people in racing who spout off in the media about what they do and don't know. One of them, if I can just give you an example, is the effect of the draw and this nonsense business that comes up now, where they're saying it all depends where the pace in the race is. Well, of course it does to a fashion, but I'm afraid I've got facts and figures that can absolutely bury them in some of the big races as to where the bias is. And they do their best to try and hide behind the pace because they can't be bothered to do the work themselves. They're not willing to put the spade work in. And it's very easy to say, well, there was no pace in that race, so obviously the result wasn't exactly predictable. But I'm afraid it was. We had the Cambridgeshire just a little while ago. 5 of the last 7 have won in large figures, and this year's was a triumph because everyone was talking about the low draw. Well, the 50 to 1 winner won from trap 2020 it was, I think, and the horse in third place was from 22. The horse was won with a 50 to 1 chance, and in the Lincoln earlier this year, the horse in question, Dolphin Vista, I think it was my first tip for the Lincoln itself. It finished 5th, so all monies weren't lost. The bookmakers are paying a lot out on the 5th place, and it duly obliged in the Cambridgeshire at 50 to 1 from an a draw which was advantageous. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so as well as all these other things you already told us, there's been several ventures that you've gone into. Can you tell us about them and how they were successful, or maybe how they weren't?
Yeah, sure. I think anything that I've done myself. Let's start with a jigsaw puzzle which I made from Desert Orchid. I got hold of Whitaker at the track one day and said how much would it be to cost me to get the rights on one of the pictures of Desi, and I got hold of it and I made this jigsaw, which was very nice. It was nicely produced and all the rest of it, and I got on the television with Derek Thompson. I can't think of the exact year now, but we were on there on Boxing Day. And you know, life's got a funny way of kicking you in the teeth at the time, because all the great races that Desi ran, on the day that I took the picture up there and we got exposure and whatever, he fell at the third last. And that was that really. In the end, I had them all stocked up in a garage, and a trader from Reading, who I've got to know in different ways, big guy in markets, and he took them all off me. So it was a no lose situation, but it wasn't quite the dream I made it. There was the time as well in 1994 when I had a shop in Kent, a betting shop. I went back into the betting shop business, and my publisher, Ian Mills at Oldcastle Books, he assured me that the lottery was coming, and I should be careful how much money I put into various ventures. I ignored him like I do, and went in there in the March, had 3 disastrous big races. First of which was Martin Pike winning the Grand National with Mini Homer, Freddie Starr's horse, which of course was very well publicised, and that went off at 16 to 1 and took most of my money with it. Just about recovered, I suppose, until the Derby, when the 7-2 favourite Erhard trotted up. It was Willie Carson's 4th win. How can a horse win the Derby when it's had 6 races as a juvenile? It doesn't happen. Only won 2 of those. Comes up and wins the Derby at 7-2 any which way you like. And then there was the wonderful 40 to 1 St Ledger winner that Pat Edery rode that September. And of course, Win McCrack jumping up and down that the bookmakers have had a wonderful day and the punters have all lost their money. Well, not in my shop, they didn't. I don't know if they were related to Pat Edery or not, but that was disastrous. And 3 weeks later, the lottery started, the national lottery, and that was it. I didn't make another Christmas.
So you touched on earlier Greyhound racing. You can elaborate a bit more into how much involvement you've had with that?
Yeah, well, when the shop went belly up in '94, I was wondering which way to turn, and the Greyhound Stadium at Sittingbourne was beginning to hit the headlines of whether it was going to open. It wasn't where it wasn't going to open, and I'll come on to that in a moment. But before then, I used the permit that I had to wangle my way into Ramsgate, which still had about 8 months, I think, left of its lifeline, although we didn't know that at the time. Yeah, I stood up there with 3 other bookmakers, and I had a guy there that I worked with, Terry, who could charm the birds off the tree. We didn't really have enough money. We certainly didn't have enough qualification to stand there in terms of what she wanted for licenses and all the rest of it. But Terry only had to go and buy her a drink, and she never asked too many times after that. But cut long story short, Ramsgate closed eventually, as I say, and so I moved up the road, as it were, to Sittingbourne, and I went to meet the guys up there. The track wasn't in a good way in the early days. I know it's a decent venue now, but the times the hair broke down there, you couldn't believe it. But I wangled my way in as a reserve commentator there. I'd never commentated on anything in my life, but I had dinner one night with the racing manager, who's still there to my knowledge, and I became a steward and did the commentating, and that lasted for as long as my next venture. And we went and we parted our ways. But it was a good bit of fun, a good bit of experience. And if you don't go knocking on doors, they can't be opened.
Lazy Bet. Now, there's a name that appeals to a punter like me that only backs what other people tells him. Is that an inspired name? Was it an inspired venture?
It was an inspired venture by Joe McNally, who's the ex-marketing director of the Tote. And he, Andrew Mount, who I know that you've done videos with, should be forever grateful to Joe, because he, along with one other guy, invented the Scoop 6. Lovely man, Joe. Got so much experience in the business, and so much of it was wasted, I'm afraid, in the later days of the Tote. They didn't acknowledge the genius that they had, in all honesty. But Joe decided to create Lazy Bet, and it was based really on the Tend to Follow. And basically the idea was that you sent a certain amount of money. I've forgotten how much it was now. Joe did all that side of it. But basically you were funding into a massive syndicate to try and win this great prize. And it was up to me basically to assemble the horses along with a friend called Simon, and we picked our horses. 2 massive results went against us, really. We had let's put it this way, on Christmas Eve, as I remember, we had all the positions from 2nd right through to about 28th. we were second, third, fourth, right the way through to 28th on the Christmas Eve. And we were looking forward to the Tingle Creek chase because we, Simon, and with Joe's backing, decided that World Chief was the underrated horse of the year. Yes, he had some great horses to run up against Zertiop, and the Irish horse, of course, which won the Tingle Creek, but gave us a great run, and there was a lot of interest in that. But the real killer was on Champion Hurdle Day, when Archibald, the great Archibald, came to win his race. It was only a matter of time when they put his head in front of the line, but he didn't want to go past Hardy Eustace, not in a million years. And there, to a fashion, died lazy bet on that day. It was a great venture, and there's still talk that we might resurrect something between us. Joe is not a quitter in life, and that story may not be dead.